Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Is the first topic we're going to talk about tonight, and it's not really news. It kind of is, but it's just a strange thing. We could not reference it, so we're slowly building an audience. We're only on episode 6. You know, we have a pretty good following, I guess, in the double digits at least. Podcast listeners, a few YouTube streamers as well. We don't really know the demographics of them, but I'm saying right now, if you are listening to this or watching this with a young child, don't want to pause it or skip ahead maybe 5 minutes, because we're going to talk about some adult stuff right now. Just an FYI. The biggest, weirdly, what I would say, the biggest story of this week was an interview given by the showrunner and executive producer of the Harley Quinn animated show in an interview with Variety magazine. Justin Halper was talking about a scene that was cut from the upcoming season 3 of Harley Quinn, in which Batman performed oral sex on Catwoman. And this was something that was not allowed to be in the show. The quote he said in the article, he said, DC was like, you can't do that. You absolutely cannot do that. Heroes don't do that. So we said, are you saying that heroes can't be selfish lovers? And they were like, no, it's that we sell consumer toys for heroes. It's hard to sell a toy of Batman if he's also going down on someone. Now that's debatable, I think.
It depends on what type of toys you're trying to sell.
Exactly. I think there's probably a whole market that they haven't thought about, if that's their answer to this question. A whole new merchandising opportunity they could be tapping into.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I said, Twitter and social media were alive with this conversation. But here's what I took out of it. We're getting closer to a season 3 of Harley Quinn, which, in my opinion, is one of the greatest, certainly one of the greatest animated superhero shows that I've ever seen. It's hilarious. It's great. It's super violent, super R-rated in general. From what I've seen in the first 2 seasons, to me, it's surprising that this is where Warner Brothers and DC draw the line as far as what you can do with their characters. Steve, have you seen either of the seasons or any episodes of the Harley Quinn animated show? I know you've been catching up on DC stuff. I don't know if you've done that yet.
No, it's on the list after, let's see, we're currently at Doom Patrol, so we're going down the Pantheon. So, yeah, we're in season 1 of Doom Patrol. This is later in the list.
Yeah. Harley Quinn, to me, is a show that certainly pushes the boundaries of what you're going to see in a superhero show. And I think, you know, this guy, Justin Halper, referenced in the same interview that they get away with a lot of that stuff because it's villain-centric. And they can have, like, the company, you know, Warner Brothers or DC, isn't as particular about what the villains can do. You can get away with the villains doing crazier stuff than if it was a Superman show or clearly a Batman show.
Right.
Couldn't get as down and dirty, so to speak. But it was weird that this is where they draw the line. That being said, I find that the Harley Quinn show and the people that are making it and writing it have a really deep understanding of these characters, what they would do, what they could do, what they can't do. They understand what makes that character, what kind of defines them, and knowing that allows them to take them to crazy places and do wild things and take huge swings with the mythology and kind of reinterpret all these things. And that's what makes me love the show. And if they're trying to do something, if they're trying to push the envelope so much that there was going to be a oral sex scene between Batman and Catwoman, I'm super excited to see what else comes out of Harley Quinn season 3. And if there's any reference to this at all, now that it has blown up on social media, there certainly are meta references in the first 2 seasons of Harley Quinn to like fan culture, nerd culture, and what people think about Harley Quinn. You know, there's a lot of meta references to fandom. I wouldn't be surprised if they sneak in a joke about Batman not being allowed to perform oral sex on Catwoman in somewhere in season 3, and I think that would be really hilarious. I'd be surprised if it doesn't show up actually at this point.
Yeah, the whole I don't know. The whole conversation itself is just a weird situation. The fact that it leaked, the fact that DC had such a problem with it. And I get it from their marketing standpoint. Like, it is. Of course, yeah. It's understandable that when you're trying to sell Batman as Batman in this bastion of, I mean, it's also Batman. Like, it's not like it's Superman. I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah.
There's different degrees. Like, Batman's never quite been a saint, but he's also never, you know, I don't know, whatever. Discussions far above our pay grade, I think, at this point. Yeah. But
I mean, I'm trying to think of the things that happened in the first 2 seasons of Harley Quinn. The craziest stuff that I can think of is usually a villain doing it. Like, Batman is in the show.
Yep.
But and they're able to do things with Batman that aren't as pushing of the envelope, I guess, as things like, Harley Quinn is straight up murdering people with her baseball bat. Right. And stuff of that nature. So it is Batman. He is a character that's marketed quite often to kids and younger adults. And I don't know. Again, I think there's a way to sell toys that would be in line with this thread, I guess. I don't really know how to say it, but if you're shocked by this news, if you're listening to this and hadn't heard this happening, just go on Twitter and search for Batman or hashtag Batman goes down, something like that, something along those lines. You will find many a hilarious meme, many a hilarious artist rendering, some not safe for work artist renderings.
Yeah, make sure you turn on safe search or incognito mode before that.
Yeah, a lot of really funny jokes about why do you think his mouth is the only part of his mask that is, that exposes his face, that kind of thing. It's if you think that kind of thing's funny, definitely go check it out if you haven't seen them. But it was literally all I saw for 2.5 days on Twitter, and then still to this day I'm seeing references to it and jokes about it. So not that that's necessarily news, but I'm excited about a 3rd season of Harley Quinn. So yeah. I wanted to get that out of the way up top.
I mean, it was crazy enough news that my wife, who has no pop culture sense whatsoever when it comes to comics and any of that, was like, "Hey, are you guys going to talk about this weekend?" So here we are.
You betcha. Sure are. Moving on to some other DC stuff that I'm very excited about. First, earlier in the week, we got a reveal of the chest piece for the Flash's costume in the new Flash movie that is being filmed right now. Now, a week or 2 ago, we got a shot of the Michael Keaton Batman emblem with a little splatter of blood on it that we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think. And this was kind of in line with that. It was the same chest piece shot. A few days later, we got the chest emblem of Supergirl, who we know is debuting in the Flash movie, played by Sasha Calle. Very excited about both these. The Flash emblem looked very New 52-y to me. A lot of yellow lines kind of coming out of it. Definitely looked more of a suit and less of a thrown together, kind of lashed together armor thing from the Jack Snyder.
It's his cousin.
Is that his name? That's his name,
yeah,
right?
It's his cousin. It's fine.
Yeah. The Zack Snyder version was definitely seemed like maybe like an upgraded suit. And the Supergirl one actually seemed very reminiscent of the Henry Cavill emblem.
Yeah.
Same kind of texture, same kind of S design. So seems like they're carrying that line through. But the bigger thing to me that happened today, this is relatively breaking news. A few hours ago, we saw via Twitter set photos from The Flash that is currently in production. Now, these were leaked set photos, but they have, not only do they have Michael Keaton on set as Bruce Wayne, they also have Sasha Calle as Supergirl in her full Supergirl costume. And I'm very excited about both of these things. Steve, did you see those photos, and what'd you think of them?
Yeah, no, I picked them up on Twitter, and it was like the first time I didn't see what the tweet was, and I just like, is that Michael Keaton? Oh, okay. Yeah, that was it. They, like you said, the Supergirl costume is very reminiscent of what they've utilized for Cavill in the modern, quote unquote, because it's not like it's the Snyderverse or whatever. The current DCEU, it's a very along those lines type design, which I think, you know, it works. It's not the like punch you in the face blue that you would see on a comics page. It's more of a subdued standard DCEU, make it dark and gritty, but it seemed to elicit a little bit more color than, you know, at least what we've seen from Cavill's suit. Design wise, it was very similar. Keaton, it was just cool to see because that was the Batman I grew up with in the movies.
Yeah.
And it was like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's not Vulture, he's Batman again. So that was
hair
fun
department had clearly something tells me that's not his hair. I think that's like a piece or whatever, but it did look very in line with the Batman and Batman Returns Bruce Wayne hairstyle. I was very excited to see that. Not that he was doing very much in the photo that was leaked, but the Supergirl costume I really like. There's a lot of more red shoulders that come down to the emblem. No skirt, which is a big change. I guess it's not. I mean, they got rid of the skirt on the Supergirl CW show eventually, but she, you know, iconically for years and years has worn a skirt in many of the different iterations of the character. But I think it looks cool without it. I like that it's a sleek look. I don't know if they're going to CGI the cape or there's going to be no cape, because in the photos that leaked, she was not wearing a cape. I kind of like it with no cape. If it was just like a sleek kind of, you know, super person suit without a cape, I kind of like that look, but I also obviously will be fine if she has a cape. My question is, and this is just pure conjecture, the background kind of looked like they were filming the same scene, kind of looked like Bruce Wayne was going to be in this scene with Supergirl, either descending or flying up because she was on wires. And because we know that this is like an alternate universe from the modern DCU with the Ezra Miller Flash and Ben Affleck's Batman, all that, if he's running into the Tim Burton verse, is it possible that there is no Superman in the Tim Burton verse and the Supergirl is the super powered entity of that universe?
Could be.
Or or at least she's the current one. Maybe there was a Superman and he's not there anymore. Like, this movie really could do anything and be anything, and I'm very excited to see what they do with it. Because it could be anything. It could be anything. And the fact that they are making the suit look like Henry Cavill's suit means that they are still, that it's still firmly in that continuity. Like, I see the hashtag restore the Snyderverse on Twitter all the time, and I guess I don't really know what that means, because they're not completely disregarding those movies, clearly. Like, you know, there's the Supergirl, it's styled after Henry Cavill, like it's a reference to Henry Cavill. Ezra Miller is the Flash in the Zack Snyder Justice League. He's the Flash in the Flash movie. You know, Gal Gadot isn't going anywhere as Wonder Woman. She's the same Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa is the same. So, like, it's still there. Like, that's it. It's just it spawned from his mind, and it's going other places now. But does it just mean that you want Ben Affleck back as Batman? Is that the only thing that hashtag means? Because he's also going to be in the Flash movie as Batman. So I don't really know what what they're saying, like restore what? What are you saying to restore? I guess you just want a sequel to Justice League, I guess, but you know, it's still there.
I think
his fingerprints are still all over it.
Right, and I think it's what I always took from that hashtag was, and you know, there's plenty of misconstrued tweets and stupidity around it, but also that like Snyder had, for all the crazy that Snyder has gone on recently, he did talk about how he had the plan for the trilogy and what he wanted to do with it, which, you know, it seemed like a great idea that, you know, 2 was effectively going to be a apocalypse movie, and what was going on there, and then 3 was bringing everything back together. But it was like, that's a phenomenal concept. It's a phenomenal idea, but that's all we've heard was the director say something about it. It's not like it's affecting anything that's currently ongoing. It's not like it's affecting anything moving forward. The weird thing that I find, and this is kind of a complete non sequitur to the Snyderverse thing, but I'm going back to you talking about Supergirl and all that. We'll talk about it later, but Tom King is launching a new Supergirl run tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Or Wednesday?
No, this week. It's already out.
Oh, it was this week? Oh, hey, there it is. As you can see, that costume doesn't look anything like what the modern DCU version is going to look like. It goes completely counterintuitive to everything Marvel has done on their side, which has been, hey, we're going to make someone in the MCU. People are going to see the MCU. They're going to want to see the people they know from the MCU in the comics. So it does, like, you look at the way both companies are kind of looking at things, and it really is a weird dichotomy where Marvel's like taking the visual and bringing it to the other visual medium, the visual medium that for lack of a better description, more people are going to be looking at. There's going to be more eyes on the Marvel movies, or at least more people that aren't hooked looking at the Marvel movies to translate that back to the comics versus the other way around. And the fact that DC is, you know, sticking to their guns with, we're just going to keep putting out whatever iterations fit for the comics is, I mean, there's something admirable about that. And I'm not a marketing genius, but I'd be curious as to where that would fit on the marketing spectrum. So it brings up a couple questions.
Well, you know, for me as a DC fan, it doesn't bother me. I'm actually excited to see a different take on Supergirl. I like that it's not the, you know, blonde-haired white girl. I know. I like that she's a Hispanic actress that's playing it because it looks different. I actually saw Tom Taylor posted on Twitter today that he invented a new version of Supergirl. I can't remember what run he was referencing, but he posted a picture, and it looked exactly like the Sasha Calle version that we saw on the set photos today. Short, dark hair, red-shouldered super suit. So it's possible that they're basing it on that character. I could be wrong.
I guess I'm just curious.
I know what you're saying about like cohesion between the look of the characters in the books versus look of the characters in the movie. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I'm just excited to see Supergirl, and it doesn't bother me that she doesn't look exactly like the character currently looks right now, because I don't know. There's so many different looks for so many different characters, and you know this movie's not going to be out for another year anyway or whatever. So
that was the crux that I just
who knows
in my
what
head.
Supergirl's going to look like in a year from now in the comics. Who knows?
That was the crux that just popped into my head. Was I was thinking this was actual, like, you know, trailers and stuff like that where DC would want to lean into the marketing for the movie. It didn't dawn on me that this is leaked set photos that we're not going to see for another year. I was just surprised when I saw the cover for what is it? Woman of Tomorrow, Legends of Tomorrow, something of Tomorrow.
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is the name of it. Yeah.
Right. So when I saw the cover for Woman of Tomorrow, and then I actually had just seen that today, but then had also seen the Sasha Calle, and I was like, why wouldn't they make the Woman of Tomorrow art look like Sasha Calle? And it just didn't dawn on me that, hey, that's going to be another year out. So I think we've come full circle on me not knowing things.
There's also been a CW show, Supergirl, that
Right.
looks very much like the classic Supergirl that we're used to, on for whatever 6 seasons now. So,
Yep.
for me, I've watched that show. I watched a lot. Not every season, but I watched the first probably 4 seasons of that show, and I like it a lot. But I'm fine because I've seen that show, because I've seen animated versions and read other books where she's the blonde-headed white girl. I'm ready for a different version of Supergirl.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and maybe because this is a multiverse movie, who knows if this is the only Supergirl that we'll ever see? Like there's
Right.
room for that also at the same time. But I'm fine with it, and I'm fine with even Marvel switching it up, and they haven't really, but who's to say that it's not going to work if they do? I don't know. I'm fine with it. I'm ready. I
Oh
just
yeah.
want to see. I'm excited for more. This is a super person, but I'm excited for more non-Batman and Superman characters in films. And I guess this is a Superman character, but I just mean like it's not Batman and it's not Superman.
Right.
Like it's just I want them to diversify their world the way that Marvel did,
Mhm.
and bringing in Supergirl instead of Superman. As much as I love Superman, like this is a way to like build things out and explore new territory,
Right.
basically.
The non-Bruce
I'm excited
Wayne,
about it.
non-Clark Kent, like, sorry, spoilers, that's who Batman and Superman are. If you're listening to this and did not realize that, I apologize. But yeah, to branch out beyond that and do a lot of what, because to this point, it's been very, I guess, phase one Marvel, if you want to put an analogy to it, where it was like,
Sure.
these are the intro movies, and here's your Justice League. And if we can start getting, the Guardians type movies that I guess we have kind of with Suicide Squad and that sort of thing, but to continue to branch beyond that will be good to see in DC. And I think if I could possibly take away to segue that, it would be that there is currently a bit of a branch timeline that includes a lot of these side characters that I think Mike is very happy to see on screen, and I currently have become a huge fan of that I did not know I was going to become a huge fan of. So
Cool. I was going to ask what you thought about the show Titans that you just binged, because we got a teaser trailer for season 3 of Titans this week. Steve, you just literally within the last 2 weeks watched 2 seasons of Titans. What did you think about those seasons, and are you excited for season 3?
I think I'm very happy that my dog wakes up very early, and I've been able to binge 2 seasons of TV in 2 weeks. Yeah, it was a great look over the first 2 seasons. The first couple of episodes were, as always, some setup. Once you got into the middle of season 1 and kind of through season 2, it kind of like it hooked you, and it was a very, very solid couple of seasons of TV, especially for someone who had no real background on a lot of these characters, like outside of knowing basic background on Dick Grayson, and that was literally probably it from the Titans going in. Was like, I know Dick Grayson was Robin, I know he becomes Nightwing, I don't know what else happens.
Right.
Season 2, the whole Jason Todd setup, any of that was novel to me and also good. Deathstroke is Deathstroke. That was just a great line. If you haven't seen it, I would highly advise taking a look at it, especially since we are going to be getting season 3 coming up. What is it, September? Is it something like that?
Yeah, I think so. This is coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this trailer?
It definitely got me quite excited, and seeing a couple of things that, like, I actually picked up on Scarecrow. I had no idea some of the other cameos, but there were some of the other quote unquote teasers until I went back and looked at various breakdowns of it. But in general, it seems like it's building on the hype, and I'm looking forward to it. I didn't. If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago if I was excited for it, I would have no clue. I no idea, but it's definitely on the top of my to watch list.
Nice. I have questions.
Yep.
And they're questions that will not be answered until we see season 3. If
Right.
you haven't seen the teaser trailer for Titans season 3, It is seemingly heavily revolving around Jason Todd, and spoilers for 30 years ago in comics. Famously, Jason Todd is the second Robin. Dick Grayson moves on from Batman, doesn't want to be Robin anymore. Batman replaces him with a street kid named Jason Todd, who he adopts, trains to be Robin. Jason is a little more hot-headed, a little more temperamental, kind of goes off. Long story short, kind of disobeys what Batman says and ends up getting beaten to death and blown up and killed by the Joker. Jason stays dead in the comic books for 25, 30 years ish, and all of a sudden shows up again as more or less a young adult or an adult man. He's grown up, and he's calling himself the Red Hood, and he's kind of an anti-hero, and to this day he's known as the Red Hood, and he works as an anti-hero. The trailer for season 3 of Titans seems like doing all of that.
Yeah.
Because it shows Jason Todd. It seemingly hints at, it shows somebody beating somebody with a crowbar. That's all we can say, right?
Right. There's definitively the maniacal laughter. Right off the bat, laughter. It starts off like, that's probably something to do with the Joker.
Yeah, it's Jason Todd's breaking into an old amusement park. Amusement Mile is the name of it in the Batman comics, seemingly. He finds a victim of the Joker with a frozen, smile pinned up on his face. Cuts to other things, cuts back to a silhouette of somebody beating somebody else with a crowbar, and you hear maniacal laughter. Now, to me, and any other DC or general comic book fan screams, that must be the Joker beating Jason Todd to death. Then later, it shows the Red Hood. The red mask, helmet over the face is his classic kind of look, calls himself the Red Hood. My question is, how do they do all of this in one season? Unless the Red Hood is going to be like a reveal at the very end, and he dies at the very beginning. Like, this is a lot. This is like 30 years of loss of Jason Todd crammed into one season. How are they doing this? You watched Titans more recently than I have. The Joker's not in those seasons, right? He's not even mentioned, I don't think.
Not that I
haven't
can remember.
Heard that they're casting the Joker. I haven't heard that he's going to be in it, but the teaser made it seem like he's going to be in it, or at least hinted at. So is the Joker going to be in it? Is the Joker going to kill Jason? Is that going to happen in the beginning of episode 1, and then he's Red Hood at the end? And how much time is going to pass in between? In the books, there's a whole thing with a Lazarus pit that he comes back and he's out of his mind for a while. It's like a whole thing.
Right.
How do you do that in one season? I don't know, but I'm very excited to see any of this happen in live action. Because it's such a pivotal story for Batman and the Bat family, and how it affects people like Dick Grayson, other members of the Titans that have worked with Jason Todd, other members of the Bat family. It's such an emotional and heavy story in the lore of Batman. I'm very excited to see it brought to life. Anytime in the Zack Snyder movies when there was a reference to a Robin getting killed in the Zack Snyder Justice League in that post-apocalyptic future where Batman and Joker were talking about him killing Robin, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. They're having this conversation. I was like, so excited about it. Now I get to kind of see it. I think I don't know how they're gonna give the weight to it that it deserves. And I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of talking in circles because I'm excited, but I don't know what to think about it.
Right. And the Red Hood reveal, like, that was, if I remember right, that was like halfway through the trailer. Like, it wasn't like they waited till the end for that either. And in my Marvel brain...
Yeah, no, they announced back at Fandom, they did DC Fandom last summer, they announced that he was going to be Red Hood.
Oh, really?
And so I immediately thought, they're going to skip the whole him dying thing, and he's going to just adopt a new persona.
It definitely doesn't seem that way from the trailer.
It doesn't seem that way at all. And we're getting another glimpse of Jorah Mormont as Bruce Wayne, possibly as Batman. He seemed like he was in some kind of suit or something, breathing heavily. So he's coming back too. Yeah, and I
still can't hear. I told Mike last week when he first showed up in season 2, I was like, I had been watching it to not wake my son up. I had been watching it with subtitles on and, volume down a little bit. So in my brain, I'm still hearing Ian Glenn speaking like Ian Glenn or speaking like Jorah Mormont, and that weird half Scottish something going on, and I'm like, this doesn't fit. And then I turned the volume up one day and I was like, oh, okay, it does work as Bruce Wayne. It's not as weird as it seemed. So yeah.
Still, it's weird seeing Bruce Wayne that old.
Yeah.
But I think I said to you, if you really do the math on the number of Robins that have come and gone that he's adopted and have grown up, then he would be pretty old. Bruce Wayne would be probably in his 50s at least. Yeah. So that's kind of like an accurate casting, really, if you do the math. But you're reading comics, everybody's 35 maximum. Regardless of how long they've been around. So
yeah, and never ages beyond that.
And they never age. Anyway, check out that trailer if you haven't seen that trailer. If you're excited about Titans, both seasons are available on HBO Max, and season 3 is coming out early this fall, and I'm very excited about it. And we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll talk about it when it comes out. Speaking of DC stuff, we got a couple quotes from director Chris McKay talking about a couple movies that probably will never happen, but I just thought they were interesting because either the movies or characters are close to my heart as a DC fan. Chris McKay directed the Lego Batman movie a few years ago. Steve, I don't know if you've ever seen the Lego Batman movie, but I highly recommend it. It is literally one of my favorite Batman movies, bar none.
I've heard that from a couple people, and that's definitely some high praise.
It is hilarious and similar to kind of how I described the Harley Quinn show, but in a much more PG rated version. You can tell that they have a very good understanding of the character, and because of that understanding, they're able to make it insane and very silly and funny, and make the jokes that make sense out of that come from that deep character understanding. So Chris McKay talked about plans for Lego Batman 2, which is not happening anymore because Warner Brothers sold the rights to the Lego franchise. I don't know why they would do that. They did, whatever. He said Lego Batman 2 was going to be about Batman's relationship with the Justice League and Superman, both now and during the formation of the Justice League. And there was also a really great part for Robin as well. Robin, voiced by Michael Cera in the original movie. Very hilarious. That's really the best part of that movie. That's a bummer. We all knew that wasn't going to happen once Warner Brothers got rid of the Lego rights. That was pretty much out the window. But, it's nice to hear that he had a good script, I guess, even though we'll never see it.
Right.
He also, speaking of Titans and speaking of Nightwing, he was originally announced as the writer or co-writer and director of the Nightwing movie. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Back when Ben Affleck was still going to direct his own solo Batman movie before they rebooted it with the Robert Pattinson version. He was attached to direct Nightwing, and it seemed like they were going off the idea of Ben Affleck being an older Batman who's been around for a while, kind of digging into an already established Bat family. That clearly is not going to happen because the Robert Pattinson verse, I guess I can't say it's not going to happen because they're announcing multiverses, left and right here.
Right.
But he's promoting a movie called The Tomorrow War with Chris Pratt, and during this interview, he said, someone would ask him about his Nightwing plans, and he said, what I hope is that Warner Brothers and DC watch The Tomorrow War and get really excited again about the Nightwing movie that we've been talking about. I hope that we get a chance to go out and make that Dick Grayson and Nightwing film, that particular part of Robin growing up from being under Batman to becoming Nightwing, and the Bloodhaven and all that stuff. It's a very personal story to me. Bloodhaven is a sister city to Gotham City that Nightwing protects, so he's never too far away from Gotham, but isn't completely under Batman's shadow all the time. I would love a Nightwing movie. I know I was very excited to see Nightwing finally debut in season 2 of Titans for the first time in live action. I said this to somebody recently. I'm a huge Batman fan. As much as I love Batman, it's easy for me to see that the most interesting part of Batman are his sidekicks and the Bat family that he has developed. Batman is very much a one-trick character. Like, he's Batman all the time. But the relationships that he has with these sidekicks, Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Damian, Stephanie Brown, they're, even Batgirl, Batwoman, there's a whole huge network of the Bat family that surrounds him. And those interactions are full of drama, full of emotion, full of pathos, what have you. And those are things that really create the drama around the character, I think, in a way that make it more interesting than just he's a guy that is mad about his parents dying and punches people in the face because of it. So I would love eventually to get a Batman or get a Nightwing movie. I guess we're going to have to see how that goes and what they're doing with Robert Pattinson universe and all that, blah, blah, blah. What I would really love is for them to introduce Dick Grayson as Robin in maybe the Pattinson Batman or the sequel, and then have it progress from there, where 5 years from now, kid is playing Nightwing instead of Robin or something like that. Like an MCU, take an MCU path where you thread the needle and let the story build until you get to where he can leave Batman and become Nightwing. Because that's when you're going to get the emotional connection to that character. And you're going to, anytime you see Batman and Nightwing on screen, you're going to know their history and how that's, sometimes a little confrontational. That's what I want.
Well, and
again, this movie has been talked about for 4 years and may never happen. But Steve, what do you think?
So with the whole the Pattinson thing, have they disclosed how many movies he's under contract for or any of that sort of thing?
I have not seen that. I'd be shocked. I mean, no one plays an A-list superhero without signing for at least 3 movies, I think, at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was...
At this point, I think if they're smart, they're signing him for way more than 3 movies. Because if they do want to build out this universe, they do want to build their own multiverse. And I know that they're saying they're going to just do single films and make good movies, and I think that's a good direction, but 100% in the back of their heads are like, if we can do this someday, we're still going to do it. So let's sign him for 9 movies, and if we don't use him, we don't use him, but let's have him on paper.
Well, and he's probably a couple years younger than us. He's probably like my sister's age, I think. I
think he's probably in his mid 30s.
Early to mid 30s. So you sign him up for a deal. You introduce Robin in, late teens, early 20s, like you're saying, and then progress him through the story, and it turns into, with the MCU, that Stark and Spidey type age gap. It's less of an age gap, but it's like something you can build on, and then have the next guy take the mantle and run with it. And from everything,
35, by the way.
Okay, yeah. So not too crazy to have. Take a kid that's 15 years younger than you under your wing and progress along that line and weave it through the story, like you're saying. That seems like a solid way to keep things moving forward, unless they're just going to stick to that one-off thing, which doesn't... I guess they could make that work, but the continuity definitely doesn't hurt, especially for a character as well known as Batman and as well, revered. Yeah.
I would love Matt Reeves, from what I've read, from what I've heard him talk about when he talks about the Batman movie, and even from the trailer, and even the fact that he's, Catwoman's in it, the Penguin is in it, the Riddler is in it, like, he's building a Gotham City that incorporates all these characters. He seems like he's a fan of the comic books. He seems like he's a fan of a diverse and complicated Gotham. I wouldn't be surprised. There were rumors that Robin was going to be in this movie, that he was going to introduce Dick Grayson in his Batman movie. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because he seems like a fan of all those connections and stuff. I think there's a way to put Robin in the movie make sense. I think, in my opinion, in order to make Bruce Wayne adopt a young boy and have him fight crime with him, to make that idea sell, have to have a Batman and a Bruce Wayne that is a little unhinged, that isn't necessarily making good judgment calls. You have to have other people in his life that are telling him, you can't do this. You're endangering this child's life. This is a bad idea. You can't, like, Alfred has to be like, dude, you should not do this. He's a child. You can't, like, then that sets up, it's maybe not a good idea. And, you know, Dick Grayson gets older and realizes and, you know, has some resentment towards Batman. And that's what breaks them apart. You know, like that, you could do that in a way. And I think Robert Pattinson, from the one trailer that we've seen, seems to be playing a Bruce Wayne that is a little unhinged. So I think they could sell that. I think they could make that work. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how long he plans on being with the role. I'm sure that if they can build out a successful Batman universe, whether or not it branches off into the Justice League in some way or not, you could do a flood of just Bat Family movies. You know, you could treat that as your interconnected universe and just have it be Gotham City universe, and doesn't have to be all of DC universe. But, you know, the more connectivity, the better. Who knows how long who knows what they're gonna go for. If they're gonna Robert Pattinson may never even connect with other, you know, Flash or whatever. Like, there's already 2 other Batman in that Flash movie, so who knows if they're gonna connect a third one. So, I don't know. I'm talking a lot because I love the Batman and the Bat Family, and I'm excited about all this stuff. But
hey,
we can move on to Marvel now, so you feel a little more comfortable, Steve.
Oh, it's all good, man. I'm becoming wiser in the ways of the Detective Comics that I never have followed at all. Like, outside of just understanding. It really is. And it's, I don't know. I always had this weird surface stigma of, like, not understanding the depths of Superman, or, like, looking at him on surface level, or, you know, looking at Batman and, like, okay, same thing over and over. Okay, we've seen, and it was mostly from the movies where you see the same goddamn story again and again.
I know, that doesn't help.
And
like I said, like, to me, the more interesting part of Batman is Robin and Nightwing and Batgirl and his interaction with these. They never really seemed that interested, besides Joel Schumacher making a not great adaptation of Robin, and not great, you know, representation of Batgirl in those 2 movies. No one seems interested in doing those because they just, like, it's got to be a dark, gritty vigilante. It's like, well, yeah, but and he's challenged by somebody who's not dark and gritty, who's a little more hopeful, and is forced to work with them or is responsible for them as a parent. Then that is interesting, and that's conflict, and that is, I don't know. It could be a great. It's great drama, is what it is.
Oh yeah, I never realized that.
More interested in the punchy and less interested in the drama. Yeah.
I never understood any of that until watching Titans, where it's like, you see that Dick Grayson's a little off his rocker too. You see that Bruce is Bruce. Like, the whole dynamic there, the whole dynamic of Grayson doing the same thing that Bruce did to him with these other kids, and, like, it's a really, there's a lot more layers than I expected to find in that show, and they did it very, very well. You know, it's not like a IMDb 9.5, but it's a damn good watch.
I mean, it's the first live action, I think, to really touch on that.
Yeah.
Like, the trauma that would happen to a young boy who's being forced to jump on rooftops and fight crime every night. Like,
yep. And they deal with,
like, whether or not you realize it when you're that young, you would be like, wait, this guy made me do that? Like, he's an asshole, and I should get away from him.
And they really deal with him versus Todd and, like, how the 2 of them are dealing with Batman very differently. And it's a good look at the different dynamics of the same situation, and how it's affecting each of these people differently. And towards the end of it, how everything else is affecting Jason Todd, and how Grayson's coming to terms with it. And it's a very good, I would give it a recommendation for the 4th time this issue.
Dick Grayson is one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, I think. And part of that reason is that he's the only, I mean, you could argue Jason also, but Dick Grayson is really the only comic book character that has been allowed to grow up. Like, we met Dick Grayson as a young child as Robin, and through the years, he's become a young adult or like an adult man as Nightwing.
Right.
And that's a character that so many people love. Like, they're never going to reboot Batman to the point where Dick Grayson is a child and Jason Todd and Tim Drake and Damian and Stephen don't exist. They're
Right.
never going to do that because so many people love those characters so much. And it's a unique thing to have two characters, Batman and Dick Grayson, that inherently come with baggage and a history. No matter how many times you reboot, like, okay, we're stopping the continuity, we're going to start over with New 52, or we're going to start over with, whatever new #1 issue. If you have Batman and Nightwing in a room, you immediately understand that these two characters have a history, regardless of whatever kind of reboot it is. Like, that's not the case with all different heroes and stuff. Like, that this was a boy and is now a man and has some kind of resentment maybe towards Batman,
Right.
and they have a complicated relationship regardless. And that is inherently interesting. Is an inherently interesting relationship that they have.
Right.
Anyway,
Speaking
could
of
talk
weird,
about this stuff all
Yeah.
the time.
oh yeah.
Or I could talk about this for another hour, but we should probably move on.
Well, speaking of weird
Marvel stuff.
interconnected families, here we are with the unintentional spider family. So Sony has officially confirmed that they are going to run back a Silk series. I know they've talked about it for a while. I think Lord and Miller were attached to it, or still are attached to it as like executive producers. But it is official that Tom Spazzali has been announced as the showrunner for the Silk series. So for people who don't know, Silk is another spider family, if we want to take a term, variant, a Korean American that was bitten by the same spider as Peter Parker, created by Dan Slott in 2014ish, somewhere in the mid 2010s.
That's why I have 2014.
Yep.
Dan Slott and Humberto Ramos.
Yep. Humberto Ramos does phenomenal work. Just check his stuff out. Slott is Slott. Like, if you know Dan Slott, he's Dan Slott. Ramos, same deal. Like, he's been around for a while and just does phenomenal stuff. But they created this new Spider-Man variant who, it's going to be good to see another Spider series coming out that looks to be independent but still part of the Sony verse-ish. Like, I don't
Sony
think it's
Pictures universe of Marvel characters.
right. I don't think it's quite tied into the. I don't know if it.
Mouthful
They didn't
of a
say whether
title?
it's tied into Venom and Carnage and Kraven and all that mess, or the MCU stuff, or somewhere in between, or who knows?
Steve, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. I remember years ago they announced that there was a Silk. I thought there was a Silk movie in development. I thought that's
Yes.
what they originally announced.
Originally
Now
there
clearly there's going to be a series. I saw Sony was, I think, in talks with Amazon, so it might be an Amazon series. Do you think this is going to be is this going to be part of the Tom Hardy Venom Sony villain verse? And if so, why isn't it a movie?
That is a very, very good question. I don't know. Sony still boggles my mind as to how they're doing what they're doing with all of what they're doing.
No, man.
It's
Don't get
like they just they're sitting on a cash cow from arguably the top or close to the top Marvel draw. Like, everyone knows Spider-Man. And yet they keep finding ways. I don't know whether it's contractual or whether there's something weird about it, but I think you touched on it a couple of weeks ago. How do you keep making Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man?
Dude, I know. Like, it's got to be contractual. We keep coming back to this. It's got to be in their contract with Disney. We get to use you can only use Spider-Man in our MCU movies, and you can't, but it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
But even if that's the deal for Peter Parker, hey, Sony, make a Miles Morales movie. Make a live action Miles Morales Spider-Man movie. Make him the Spider-Man that fights Tom Hardy's Venom and Morbius and Kraven and all that stuff. Do it. You'll make billions of dollars.
Actually, you know
Why are
what?
they doing that?
Instead of that, go full blown. Make it a Spider-Ham movie.
Make it
Parker.
a Silk movie. Make it a Spider-Gwen movie. Take a spider character that's a hero, make that movie, and make them fight Tom Hardy's Venom.
Dude, give
You'll
me the
make $1
superior
billion.
Spider-Man. Give me Doc Ock as Spider-Man in Spider-Man's body fighting Venom. I'm fine with that.
Make $1 billion if you put a spider person hero in these movies. You'll make $1 billion.
Yeah.
And you're not. Why aren't you doing it? Why? Sony, why? But anyway, I'm excited for this. I don't know much about Silk. I don't think I've ever read anything with Silk. I think her costume is super cool looking.
Yes.
She's got a great look to her. She has like most of the same powers. I think she can organically spin webs, and I think her and Peter have some kind of pheromone attraction because they're bitten by the same spider.
Yeah,
or am I thinking of somebody else? I think
funky
that's it.
something or other. But yeah, she has the Tobey Maguire. She has the Tobey Maguire web shooters. And
Okay.
I just thought of something because Silk had a cameo, or Cindy Moon had a cameo in, was it Far From Home and Infinity War?
She was in a couple. I think she was in Infinity War and
because she was in the scene where Ned was looking at porn.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I'd assume if it's because it's got to be a different actress, or if they go with the same actress, then it'd be MCU. And if they haven't, then, or if they're not going to, then I guess we'll know it's part of the Sony stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're gonna talk about a similar issue in a couple minutes here, as far as casting an existing actor. But yeah, I'm excited for this. There, the showrunner has worked on HBO's Watchmen and also Ash vs. Evil Dead, so he certainly has experience in this kind of genre television storytelling. Excuse me.
I still haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead.
It's early days. What's that?
I still haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead, and I love the original stuff. So, was it?
It's so good.
All right, so that should move up my list of crap to watch.
Well, I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, I don't want you to jump off of Doom Patrol because Doom Patrol is excellent. But if you like the Evil Dead movies, like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, Ash vs. Evil Dead is the sequel that you've always wanted to Army of Darkness.
All right, it's on the list.
And it's a bummer that it got canceled and season 3 ended on a cliffhanger, and so we won't really see what happens, and it got canceled after that. And Bruce Campbell says he's retired from playing Ash, but it's so worth it. It's so incredible. I love it so much.
Hey, on the technical side, I just realized that if I went to the next page on our show notes, all that information I was hoping I pulled with like Alberto Ramos and Dan Slott in 2014 sitting right there for me. So thanks.
I know you're like 2014. I'm like, are you not reading the rundown that I put together that says that year right there? But hey, you nailed that year without looking at it. It's pretty good.
There we go. God.
Still talking about, you know what? I just realized that with the exception of one story, we're talking exclusively about Batman characters and or Spider-Man characters today.
Gotta love it.
That's really funny. So, speaking of the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, talking about a movie called Morbius, the Living Vampire, a movie that I'm not sure if I'm going to love it, if I'm going to hate it, or just be meh about it, because I don't know. He's not a character that I'm super passionate about. The trailer looks kind of cool. Anyway, Tyrese Gibson, who plays an FBI agent in Morbius earlier this week, claimed that the movie was going to be pushed back again. It was pushed back due to the COVID pandemic. It's supposed to come out in January, but he claimed that it was going to be pushed back again to October of 2022, and also said that the Morbius movie is part of the MCU. Then Sony quickly came out and responded saying that the movie was still set to come out in January of 2022, and that it is part of the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters and not part of the MCU. So, fine. But you all saw the trailer for Morbius, or I did, Steve did, and who's in that but Michael Keaton, seemingly as Adrian Coombs the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming.
No, you missed it.
Part of the MCU.
Yeah, you missed it. He was actually Batman in that trailer. Yeah. So we're doing big crossovers here.
And Jared Leto's playing both Morbius and the Joker.
Oh yeah, yeah. It wasn't a trailer for Morbius. It was actually a trailer for the Apocalypse movie that we were talking about earlier.
The Flash, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, I don't know. Like, when I saw the Morbius trailer and I saw Michael Keaton in it, I mean, there's no way he's not playing the Vulture, right? There's no way.
I mean, we have seen what Sony's done so far. They could take a completely known character or a completely known actor playing an already established Spider-Man villain and completely screw it up. But yes, I think I'm with you that there's a good chance that he has to be playing Adrian Coombs at this point.
So then it's got to be connected to the MCU, right?
Again, we've seen this. But yeah, I guess when you dive down that rabbit hole, you're also looking at what's the end game on it, and it doesn't seem like they have one because, as we'll talk about in a minute, we just keep adding former members of the Sinister Six and not doing anything with them. We're gonna have the Sinister 18 soon, so yeah, it's
Well, wasn't it like a week or two ago that we mentioned that somebody at Sony said that there was a plan to connect these to the MCU at some point?
yeah.
If this is part of that plan, why are they being cagey about it?
Right.
Are they just trying to save it for like a reveal or something? But then why'd you put it in your trailer? I don't know. Again, maybe it's contractual. I don't understand I don't understand the relationship between Sony Spider-Man and Disney Spider-Man. It's clearly more complicated than it should be. If Sony owns Spider-Man, I don't know why they can't just put Spider-Man in all their movies.
And
it
seems like based on the past couple of years that Sony and Marvel don't quite know what the relationship is between Sony and Marvel. So I think until we see more trailers on Morbius, which hopefully they're better than the first one, and I keep saying this, but I've always had a thing against Morbius. I'm not a vampire guy, and Morbius has always really just not fit well with me with the rest of the spider people.
I am a vampire guy in general.
Yeah.
I like horror things and scary things, but I always do think it's weird when somebody like Spider-Man or Batman goes up against a vampire. I don't know why. And I don't know why, because they go up against weirder characters. Like, I'm fine with Batman fighting a man full of clay that's made of clay, or Solomon Grundy, a zombie, or a guy that has a freeze gun. Right. But a vampire's like, hey, come on, that doesn't make sense. Like, why do I draw the line there? I don't understand. I don't know why I do, but I do. And same with Spider-Man. Like, yeah, Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, like, these are all kind of like scary sounding things anyway. Make one of them a vampire and it turns me off. I don't understand why.
Yeah, and
he's not just a vampire, he's a living vampire. That's the difference right there. We're not thinking of that.
Well, I mean, so's kind of Omega Red, and that doesn't bother Omega Red and Wolverine doesn't bother me. But for some reason Morbius and Spider-Man just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'll have to do some soul searching and figure out why I don't like superheroes fighting vampires.
Yeah.
But no, like, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'll watch Buffy kill vampires day in and day out. But Spider-Man, not for me. I don't get it.
That's exactly where I'm sitting.
But I will 100% watch this movie, and I hope that it's good. I mean, I don't want to watch any movie hoping that it's bad. But and as much crap as Jared Leto gets for people not liking his Joker or whatever, I think he's a great actor. I think he's a weirdo in real life, but I think he can do some great stuff when he's given good material and he's taking it seriously. So I think he's a pretty good fit for this. If I was ahead of Sony, I would not have made a Morbius movie, but if they're going to make one, I hope it's good.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it. Continuing with the
movies that they may or may not have made or wanted to make, but I hope they're good when they do make them.
Continuing with the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. I think they'd come up with a better name for that, but I guess they're sticking with that for now. Talking about a rumor, a couple weeks ago we talked about the Kraven movie that was announced with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Is that his name?
That's it.
Cast as Kraven. The Kraven movie is reportedly looking to cast somebody to play the Chameleon as the villain-ish, maybe the villain, of the Kraven the Hunter movie. Chameleon was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and was, I think, literally Spider-Man's first enemy because he debuted in The Amazing Spider-Man #1 in 1963. The Chameleon's real name is Dmitry Smerdyakov.
I've seen it written.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to run
and-
into a lot on these is like we see names that we've read for years. Who the hell knows how it's actually pronounced?
Yeah. And interesting, I don't know if I knew this, he is the half brother of Kraven the Hunter. So that makes sense that they would be casting this character in this movie, whether or not that's going to be like a twist. You're going to find out that they're brothers or whatever. If it is, sorry everybody that we just spoiled that twist for you. But the other thing is interesting that I did not realize at all is that the actor Numan Akar played the character of Dmitry Smeryakov in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, he was the bus driver.
Yes, he was the Russian bus driver guy.
Yep.
So, similar to what you said earlier about Cindy Moon as Silk being portrayed by an actress in two MCU movies already.
Right.
Are they going to recast this guy, or is this guy going to be in the Kraven movie as the brother, or is there going to be two Dmitry Smerdyakov in the MCU or in the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters? Like, I don't know. Are they just going to hope we forget that guy played Chameleon's name, at first? Who knows?
And I mean, to be fair, most people probably have no idea that was Chameleon.
Yeah, no idea.
But he's been cast.
What do you think? Yeah. What do you think about this as a rumor? What do you think about the character going up against Kraven in general?
I mean, Chameleon and Kraven have always been, they've always been standard Spider-Man enemies. With that tie, that they're related, that probably bodes well for making a compelling plot around it. In so much as you can create a compelling plot around Kraven the Hunter without Spider-Man. So,
yeah. I mean, I guess I think it makes sense because Kraven is a hunter, and if he's trying to hunt somebody specific, it would be hard for him to hunt somebody that can change their appearance, and that's the Chameleon's power, or the Chameleon is gifted at disguise or whatever, so that would maybe make it harder for somebody to hunt them,
right?
Which I think makes sense. Again, like we've been saying, I would rather just this be a Spider-Man movie with these characters in it, but we're not going to get that, so we're going to take what we get. And that's interesting. It's kind of surprising with all the Spider-Man movies that they've made that the Chameleon hasn't been the villain, considering he was the first ever adversary for Spider-Man in his first book.
Yeah.
Seems odd that he wouldn't have been in a Sam Raimi movie or even referenced in any of Spider-Man movies that we've seen so far.
Yeah, some sort of small cameo or something. I guess it's maybe that his power is a little bit more boring and not maybe not quite as visually spectacular as Dr. Octopus or something. Right, so. And the seminal runs have usually Chameleon's always been there in the background or doing something or part of whatever, whereas Goblin or Doc Ock or whatever have been part of the main, when you think of Spider-Man runs, you think of him facing one of those guys. So that might be where that all kind of fell apart for Chameleon.
I mean, if you're making a movie and you have to choose between a guy that looks like a goblin and flies on a visor or a guy with giant metal arms or somebody that can just look like somebody else, what's more the more subtle power isn't necessarily the more visually interesting for an action movie, but it could be cool for a hunting detective solving a thing. I guess I don't know anything about the Kraven the Hunter movie, but it seems like maybe that's where they're going with it, and I guess we'll see.
Yeah, there we go.
Moving on to the one non-DC and Marvel story we have this week. Really, I didn't get any Star Wars stuff, no Game of Thrones stuff, no Lord of the Rings stuff this week. But we do have more casting in the Toxic Avenger reboot. Elijah Wood and Julia Davis are joining the cast of the Toxic Avenger, and they are joining a surprisingly star-studded cast of Peter Dinklage as the title Toxic Avenger. Kevin Bacon and Jacob Tremblay are all cast in the movie. Kevin Bacon playing the villain. Found out last week. Steve, have any connection to the Toxic Avenger or any like nostalgic?
I watched the 80s movie. Didn't really watch a ton. I know he had a lot of comic runs. I do, somewhere around here in a long box, I have an old school Toxic, like, single issue that I probably got in some package that sent away for whatever, you know, here's 20 random comics, enjoy, that were dollar bin from somebody. But definitely there's a Toxic Avenger book somewhere in this house. Where? No idea.
There you go.
But that is my entire connection to Toxic Avenger.
I don't know that I've ever seen the actual movie. I've seen the trailer a bunch of times. I don't know why that happened, and I never actually saw the movie. And I know there was like an animated series when I was a kid, short run animated series that I used to watch all the time.
Oh yeah,
that's the most I've ever known of Toxic Avenger, was this animated series, and there was like a toy line, based on that animated series. And I don't know how much. For some reason, I get the impression the animated series doesn't have a lot to do with the film. I could be wrong, but
apparently they made a musical
because I know. All right, what'd you say?
Apparently they made a musical.
What?
There's a Toxic Avenger musical written in 2008. 2008 rock musical based on the 1984 film of the same name. I really need to see this now.
Interesting.
Sorry to throw you completely off there.
Do this, 'cause I know the Toxic Avenger, is kind of a tongue-in-cheek, supposed to be bad, so bad it's good kind of movie, or at least that's the feeling I get from the things I know about it or have seen of it. I think it's interesting that Peter Dinklage is playing the Toxic Avenger. He's a great actor. So I'm just interested to see the take on this. I want to see photos. I want to see costume reveals. I want to see a trailer. Like, is this going to be weird, supposed to be B-movie comedy? Is it going to be practical effects? Is it going to be CGI heavy? Like, what is this going to be? And, I don't know. Just like, what viewpoint is this movie going to take, and what, it's going to be. I'm very interested to see anything about it, I guess. Especially now that we know this cast is shaping up to be a considerable cast.
You could tell me that cast was in a movie that's like debuting at like a random film festival, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Just like an indie drama,
right? Yeah,
great.
Like, okay, cool. Instead, it's the remake of a 1984 B movie. So based on a I don't know, mutated superhero with a mop. So yeah, this should be like, it's definitely on the radar as something that needs to be looked into.
I know, it doesn't seem like Peter Dinklage would agree to do it unless it was a really great script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're getting names attached to this, something that is a remake of a goofy B movie, and just the name is Toxic Avenger. Like,
right.
That's weird. That's even a weird title. So I feel like the idea has to be good to be attracting this caliber of actor, I guess is what I mean. Dinklage, Kevin Bacon, Elijah Wood, Julia Davis, like even Jacob Tremblay. They don't have to be doing the Toxic Avenger, these actors, and something has attracted them to this project enough for them to sign on to it. So it's got to be something there.
Jacob Tremblay, name sounds familiar. What's he been in?
He was the kid in Room.
Okay.
With Brie Larson.
Yeah.
I think he was actually nominated for an Oscar for that. I could be wrong. But he's a child actor.
Right.
I'm not sure how old he is now, but he's still young. He's not an adult by any means, I don't think. I don't know what his role in this movie is going to be. I don't know, besides Dinklage being the main guy and Bacon being the bad guy, I don't know what anybody's role in this movie is going to be.
I mean, Elijah Wood will definitely be a hobbit, so that's...
Of course. Yep, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a lot of interesting... I don't know. I can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Thinking about it,
when I heard they were making a reboot of Toxic Avenger, I was like, I don't care about that. And then there was like Peter Dinklage was like,
right.
Oh, I'm kind of interested in that. And now the more that they cast people, the more interested I get. So we'll just have to see what it looks like when we start getting looks at it.
Yeah, and thinking back on it, I don't know if I ever So I said I saw the movie. I think I was thinking of that cartoon that you're talking about.
Ah, yeah.
And I don't ever remember liking the cartoon. I remember watching it a lot.
I kind of feel the same way. Yeah, I don't remember loving it, but I remember watching it. Yeah.
So, because I pulled up the Wikipedia on the Toxic Avenger movie, and I was like, that doesn't look familiar. So I think it was the cartoon that I'm thinking of. I definitely remember, like, they had like you said, a crazy toy line associated with it and everything. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they'll lean into it, and we're getting Masters of the Universe, we're getting Toxic Avenger, we're getting all of 1980s coming back around.
Yep, everything comes back. Nothing ever dies anymore. Just boots and reboots and reboots. Speaking of things that get rebooted and go on in perpetuity, we're going to talk about some comic books now, ladies and gentlemen. We got some new announcements from Marvel this week. Marvel announced a new limited series called Dark Ages, written by Tom Taylor, with art by Iban Coelho. This takes place in an alternative timeline, and the description of it is as follows: a danger older than the Earth threatens everything, and for once, the heroes who have saved their planet time and time again find themselves almost completely powerless in the face of it. X-Men and Avengers will assemble, Spider-People and the Fantastic Four will come together, heroes for hire will fight alongside champions, but none of it will be enough. The lights are about to go out forever. Steve, what do you think about this? Dark Ages.
Here we go for another crossover. What was it? 2 years ago, it was War of the Realms. We've got King in Black. We've had Marvel every year comes up with something and brings everyone together, and then tears them apart and rebuilds everything. And all the individual books will tie into this at some point. With Taylor at the helm, I'm intrigued. It should be.
He is a great writer.
Yeah. Apparently, anyone named Tom is fine at writing comic books lately.
They get confused for each other all the time.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Tom Taylor constantly getting confused. It's really funny.
I've done it myself a couple of times. I'm like, no, wrong way. Marvel's done pretty solid with these crossovers lately. It's all they've given us is what you read. So, or all I've seen on it. I haven't seen much else other than like the one article that we linked in the notes.
Yeah, but there's an article and a cover that shows kind of darkened figures of Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, I think maybe Captain Marvel, some other, I couldn't really make out everybody.
Looks like Sue Storm.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting log line. I feel like every crossover has to be some kind of giant world-ending event.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that he says none of it will be enough is interesting to me. And the fact that it's an alternative timeline means he can kill characters and not have to deal with what's going on in the current continuity anyway. I'm currently rereading a book that Tom Taylor wrote for DC called Deceased, which is basically DC's version of Marvel Zombies. I never read all the Marvel Zombie stuff, but
I remember.
I'm only saying that because this involves a virus that turns people into zombies more or less, and they have to, fight to keep people from it. It's very, very good, and it takes place in alternate timelines, so obviously like there's mass death and a lot of characters that you think would make it out do not make it out. It's very good, and there was like spin-offs and other things, and Tom Taylor wrote all of and he wrote a very good he did a very good job handling all those characters and coming up with new ways for them to combat this terrible virus, like something that's uncombatable basically. Tom Taylor also wrote Injustice for DC, the adaptation of the comic book, which is another alternative timeline thing that people seem to really love. I've never read it. It's an evil Superman thing, so it doesn't really appeal to me, but people tell me it's great. He's a great writer, so I'm down for this for sure. I'm not sure when that's actually coming out. I think a few months from now.
September, I think.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely worth checking out.
I mean, Marvel's kind of been toying with it. They brought back Heroes Reborn, Jason Aaron at the helm there. So you're already looking at alternate timeline stuff. With this, maybe it's a reboot into like what they did back in the day with Ultimates. and where it's going to be, you know, if it's well received, maybe it spurns like another continuity like Ultimates did, where it's just, you know, it's not 616, it's some other alternate dimension that they actually keep going down that timeline. Because, you know, in the past, you're looking at stuff like the Ultimate Universe where you got Miles Morales, who became one of right now he's one of the best written characters out there. Like that, his current run is actually pretty solid. Like I've been keeping up on that
and
as well.
And he's crazy popular.
Oh god, he's great. He's yeah. And if they can, you know, catch lightning in a bottle again on that, I'm sure they'll jump on it. I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean that happens all the time. Like Harley Quinn was invented for a background character in the Batman the Animated Series, and she was so popular they brought her back in the show, and then they introduced her in the comics. You know, like that happens for alternative realities or mediums other than comic books. If a character really pops, they'll figure out a way to get him into modern continuity. You know, one way or the other. And yeah, some ramifications that happen in these alternative storylines are so popular that they start weaving those aspects into current continuity. Comics are weird, man. Like
yes, they are.
I love them and they're great. It's so funny that so many people's like favorite stories, Dark Knight Returns is, you know, comes to mind, where it's like it's one of the pinnacle stories in DC or just comics in general. Like everyone looks at Dark Knight Returns as being this like, you know, monumental story. And it's this alternative timeline, and it's not necessarily part of the main continuity, but you only appreciate the outside of continuity things if you are familiar with all the in continuity things. So you kind of have to do your due diligence in reading the regular books in order to appreciate a spin-off where everybody dies, or Clark Kent's, or you know, Kal-El's rocket lands somewhere other than Smallville, Kansas, you know, like those kind of things. Like, what if this happened instead? Like, you can't really understand how cool that is unless you've done the homework over here. It's a whole thing.
You don't get Dark Knight Returns. You don't get Old Man Logan. You don't get any of those.
That's another perfect example. Yes,
where it's like this is a different version of Wolverine or Batman, but it's only there because of 40 years of books before that have set up this character.
It's only interesting because it's different than the thing that you know. And if you don't know the thing that you know, is it as interesting as we think it is?
Right.
I don't know. Like,
if you gave somebody that in a vacuum, is it the same?
Yeah. Yeah, like I have a couple of friends that I am trying to get them hooked on reading comics and, you know, trades and graphic novels and things like that. My end goal is to get them to love Batman in some way. And as much as I want them to jump into like Court of Owls or Dark Knight Returns or whatever, it's like always like, here's year one. You got to start with year one. And if you like this, we'll go from there. But anyway, that's a little side conversation about how great comic books are. Another announcement we got from Marvel is the return of Ms. Marvel, a limited series called Ms. Marvel Beyond the Limit, from novelist Samira Ahmed and artist Andres Genolet. Maybe
sure.
That's how you say it.
Sounds good.
It's a new series that, quote, finds Kamala visiting her cousin's laboratory in Chicago when a mysterious explosion triggers some interdimensional calamity. Whatever happens also leaves Kamala's powers, quote, on the fritz, and puts her in a race against time to set things right. This is cool. Bringing back Ms. Marvel, at least a limited series, probably in time to line up with her show debuting on Disney Plus, I would think. Some good tie-in stuff there. Steve, have you read much Ms. Marvel, and are you excited about this series?
The original run, and I mean, Kamala Khan she's been set up as a great character from. Let's back this up. I've liked everything I've read of her. She's an intriguing character. Marvel is leaning heavily into her, and I'm very curious how they shoehorn the way her power, because this is all tied into her powers on the fritz, and that how they shoehorn her powers and where she gets them from and all that in this series. Whether they're going to still stick with the Inhumans thing, because technically she's one of the Inhumans, and the Terrigen bomb and the whole thing set her off and all that. But in the series, so we go back to the books versus MCU thing. So they can't really lean into the Inhumans in the MCU stuff. So where Kamala Khan is getting her powers, who knows? They basically, after that mess of a series of a show or season of a show, have disowned the Inhumans as a possible source. So where's it coming from?
About that.
Yeah,
it's a good point. I haven't thought of, because not only have they kind of disowned the Inhumans, but the Inhumans played such a big role in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that series, when that was on, and they've never... it's been a long time since they've acknowledged anything that happened with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that wasn't the character of Coulson or anything. Like, none of them have showed back up in the MCU at all. I think they're...
Did you not
kind of move
Did you
past
not watch
that.
this week?
What's that?
Did you not watch Wednesday?
Okay.
Yeah, Phil Coulson was in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. He was, but he was in. But that was from the Avengers, though.
Yes.
When he died.
Yep.
Post that,
Yeah.
really haven't, and especially even maybe in season 1 or 2, they did, reference MCU, but then they really have gotten far away from it, and I can't see them really going back to it. Does that mean that they don't reference her as an Inhuman? It seems like they would still want to be true to the origin.
Right.
I guess, who knows? They could do anything they want.
Well, that's one thing. One thing I've kind of, because she's from New Jersey. WandaVision happened in New Jersey.
It's true.
So there's been a couple of theories I've seen tossed around, whether it's that something to do with WandaVision and the Hex and that triggering something, or whether they just shoehorn her in as a mutant and bring it in that way, or there's a plethora of options they have. Like you said, none of them are true to the origin, but it may just be what they need to do to get it done for the MCU purposes.
Yeah, and however they do it, it's going to be thought out in a way that will pay off. Or
yep,
if they stray from the origin, it's for a reason that we'll find out later on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so I'm looking forward to the series. Now that we've digressed completely into...
Are you looking forward to the miniseries comic book that will tie in, will be released around the same time?
Yeah, and that's... I've kind of... I think I was talking to you about it. It might have been on this show, for that matter. How, lately... Oh, no, that's what it was. It was how you were talking about how everything that's being released as a TV show, you've been going back and grabbing, trades of, not Why Last Man, but...
but Sweet Tooth and all this stuff is just like, I need to read it. Right. I need to read it. I haven't read it yet. Yeah.
So with the Marvel stuff, I've effectively been doing that with the Marvel Unlimited, and anything that's had a reference. Like, now that Ms. Marvel's on deck, I'll probably be grabbing a bunch of her stuff and reading through it. With WandaVision, it was, the 82 WandaVision or Scarlet Witch and Vision, and Tom King's The Vision, go read that if anyone that is listening to this. That was just... I
just let a friend of mine borrow that last week.
Nice.
And I hope she started already, because I really want to talk to her about it. So good.
Yeah, but yeah, I think they've been doing pretty good as far as highlighting these characters prior to them hitting the screen. So I think it should be a solid option. They have also been leaning into a lot of novelists and non-comic book writers writing series lately. So it's been an interesting take on a lot of, like, Ta-Nehisi Coates killed it.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, he killed it on Panther and Captain America, and they've been doing that for more and more books lately, and it's good to see fresh faces and fresh ideas in the space.
I know, and now he's writing a new Superman movie for Warner Brothers. So, I think that's cool, because I think it's good to look outside the box, I guess, every once in a while. Like, just because you've never written a comic book doesn't mean that you can't, or doesn't mean that you it's good to bring in some outside ideas or outside perspectives, I guess. And I didn't put the quote in here, but Samira Ahmed had some great things to say about Ms. Marvel, the character, how important she is to just younger characters, but also she is a Muslim character, and they do explore that in her original series, and I believe they're going to do that in this series as well. Like, they certainly don't shy away from that, and that representation is incredibly important when she was introduced. It's incredibly important now as well. And again, the fact that she's going to be in her own Disney Plus series, the fact that she's going to be in the Captain Marvel sequel, this is all just, this character's just has only begun to blow up, I think. And the fact that they made her the lead character in that Avengers game that had mixed reactions and wasn't that great, but the fact that they made her the main character is another signal to me that they're setting her up for bigger things, just more than just comic books.
Oh, absolutely.
They are putting a lot of stake in her moving forward for film and television.
Yep.
Last but not least, the book we already talked about. We'll mention it really quick again. Tom King's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow debuted this week. It is a gorgeous looking book. It deals with, it's written by Tom King with art from Bilquis Evely and Matt Lopes. And it finds Kara Zor-El stranded on an alien planet being asked to help a local girl avenge the murder of her father. So it's something that Kara is not looking to get involved in, but ends up getting involved in and feeling obligated to help this young girl and possibly agree to, again, I've only read one issue, so I don't know, possibly agree to help her avenge the murder of her father. Very interesting, very different from other stuff that I've read from Tom King. Certainly Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures have their own kind of feel. This feels like his writing for sure, but the art is oddly different and gorgeous. And, the setup for the story is a little bit different than anything I've read by Tom King so far. So very interested to see where this goes. And that's that. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And I'll pick it up. It's on shelves right now. So, Steve, that's all I got, buddy. For Light Week, we certainly did talk for a long time about at least two characters, or characters tangential to Spider-Man and Batman. Yeah. You got anything else to add or anything else to say, or are we just going to wrap it up?
No, I would just echo what we started the podcast with, and a happy Father's Day to anyone listening who happens to qualify as a father in any way, shape, or form. The standard, if you would like to get a hold of us, check out themultiversereport.com. Email us at themultiversereport@gmail.com. Feel free to like, subscribe on YouTube. Ring the bell if you want to know when we go live. It's usually around 9:30 p.m. on Sundays. And subscribe in your favorite podcatcher of choice. Also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us a review and rating. Really helps get the word out and helps their algorithm say people should be listening to us. So,
and tell all your nerd friends to listen to us.
Oh, the old-fashioned way?
Yeah,
we can do that
word
too?
Of mouth.
Holy crap, we can talk to people?
We can. CDC says you can tell people about our podcast. It's okay to do that now.
There we go. We've gotten guidance from, we don't know what CDC stands for in this case, but we're going to go with it.
Center Comics 10, no, I don't know. I lost it.
Oh, perfect. Well, on that note, folks, I think we've hit the limit, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Center for Dope Comics.
There we go. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.